Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving headfirst into something we all use every single day, often without a second thought. Human language.
Right.
It's not just a tool for communication, is it? It's this, well, biological marvel, a cognitive puzzle.
And a social tapestry, all woven into one. Yeah.
And as we unpack this, I think you'll find some truly surprising insights.
Yeah.
Stuff that might change how you think about just, talking.
Indeed. We've gathered some fascinating research that really dissects language from, well, pretty much every angle. We're looking at it as this multi-layered phenomenon, a blend of the fundamental biology, how our brains are wired, the complex cognition that lets us form thoughts and express them, and then the deeply ingrained social dynamics that shape how language actually lives and breathes out there in our communities.
So our mission for this deep dive is to explore the cutting edge of language research. We'll journey from artificial intelligence predicting brain activity during conversations, which is wild,
It really is.
to the specific brain pathways that let us seek and understand how our genes influence our ability to talk.
And even how language is like a living thing, constantly shaped by our communities and our social beliefs.
Get ready for some serious aha moments because this goes way beyond just, grammar rules. Okay, let's dive into some truly groundbreaking neuroscience first. Imagine an AI that can literally look at your brain activity and guess what you're saying or hearing. A groundbreaking study has done just that. It's absolutely mind-bending.
Yeah, this research used a sophisticated AI model called Whisper. It's a multimodal deep learning model. Think of it as an AI that's incredibly good at understanding the nuances of speech from the raw sound all the way up to the language itself.
Okay.
So what they did, they basically extracted different types of embeddings from Whisper.
Embeddings,
Yeah.
like digital fingerprints of the sound.
Sort of, yeah. Rich numerical representations of the data, capturing everything from acoustic features to the actual linguistic meaning. And then they trained other models to map these embeddings directly onto the neural activity in patients' brains during, natural conversations.
Wow. So it's like the AI is translating between what it hears and what the brain does? That's truly remarkable.
It is, and the accuracy was quite high.
And what's even more impressive is they didn't just get a general sense, they identified specific brain regions involved in this whole process.
That's right.
For instance, the superior temporal gyrus, the STG, that's where your brain first processes the sounds of speech, right?
Correct. The primary auditory processing.
Then you have the inferior frontal gyrus, IFG, which really kicks in for both understanding and producing language.
Comprehension and production.
We're also talking about parts of the precentral and postcentral gyrus, pre-CG and post-CG, crucial for the somatomotor planning.
Exactly, getting your mouth and tongue ready to actually form the words.
And even the angular gyrus and temporal pole, AG and TP, for higher level semantic cognition, like the deep understanding of meaning.
Right, putting it all together. What's truly fascinating here, though, is the hierarchy they observed within these predictions. They found that the speech embeddings, those rich representations containing contextual speech info, consistently outperformed simple acoustic embeddings in predicting neural activity.
Ah, okay, so the context matters more than just the raw sound.
It suggests that, yes, the brain isn't just processing raw sounds in isolation. It's deeply engaged with the context and structure of speech from very early on. The more abstract language embeddings were also important, but these detailed speech embeddings from Whisper's speech encoder, they proved particularly potent in modeling cortical areas across the whole language network.
From perception to production.
Exactly.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me and maybe challenges some older ideas.
Go on.
Whisper was not explicitly trained to recognize traditional psycholinguistic units, like phonemes, the basic sounds, or parts of speech like nouns and verbs.
Right, it wasn't given those rules up front.
Yet the study found that Whisper's embeddings implicitly learned these constructs anyway. Its speech encoder embeddings could classify phonemes with about, 54% accuracy?
Around that, yeah. And its language embeddings could classify parts of speech, nouns, verbs with about 67% accuracy.
It's like it figured out the rules of language on its own, just by listening.
Precisely. It demonstrates that these deep, end-to-end multimodal models can capture incredibly complex language statistics and high-level syntactic properties without needing those predefined symbolic units.
Which have traditionally been seen as fundamental building blocks in psycholinguistics.
Exactly. The real insight here, I think, is how AI is challenging that long-held view. Maybe our brains don't need innate, hard-coded grammar rules to learn language in the way we thought.
So maybe we're just amazing pattern recognizers.
That's what it suggests. Perhaps, like these models, our brains implicitly derive these complex structures from sheer exposure. This could fundamentally shift how we think about human language acquisition.
Okay, so we've seen how AI helps us observe the brain's language code in action. Super cool. But how does the brain actually execute that code? Physically orchestrate speaking and understanding.
Right, the mechanics of it.
That brings us to our next piece, looking at the brain's internal architecture. The pathways it uses to produce language.
Yeah, human language processing isn't just a random mess in there, it's remarkably organized. In the left hemisphere mostly, we see two main processing streams, or pathways. Think of them connecting the back of the temporal lobe with the front of the frontal lobe.
Like neural superhighways.
Pretty much. The dorsal pathway and the ventral pathway, they run above and below the Sylvian fissure, that big groove on the side of the brain.
And a study involving neurosurgical patients gave us some critical insights here, right? They were awake during surgery.
Yes, undergoing awake language mapping. They were performing language tasks while doctors used direct cortical stimulation and even tiny subcortical resections.
Wow, so a direct window into what each pathway was doing in real time.
Exactly. And the findings were quite clear, especially during that subcortical testing. It seemed to show a more distinct division of labor than just looking at the cortex.
Okay, so what did they find?
The dorsal pathways, including that big bundle of nerve fibers called the arcuate fasciculus, seemed crucial for organizing words into sequences.
Syntactic encoding. Building sentences correctly.
Right, that and also phonological encoding, getting the speech sounds right.
Okay, so grammar and sound.
Mm-hmm.
And the ventral.
The ventral pathways, like the inferior frontal occipital fasciculus, were critical for semantic processing, understanding the meaning of words and sentences, forming those meaning dependencies.
So one handles grammar and sound, the other handles meaning. That's a neat split.
It provides really compelling causal evidence for these distinct roles.
You mentioned the division was clearer subcortically than cortically. Why is that important?
Well, it suggests that the cortical areas, the brain's surface, might have greater plasticity.
The ability to reorganize.
Exactly. Especially in patients maybe with slow-growing tumors, the brain surface might reroute functions. But deeper down, those white matter pathways, their roles seem more fixed, more specialized.
Interesting. Like the main highways are set, even if the local roads can change.
That's a good analogy, yeah.
So we've touched on how we produce language. But this raises a big question. How does that relate to how we perceive language when we listen?
Ah, yes. That brings us to a classic and I think really profound idea in language science, the motor theory of speech perception.
Motor theory, meaning it involves movement.
In a way, yes. The theory proposes that when we perceive speech, we're not just hearing raw acoustic patterns like, a jumble of sounds. Instead, we're implicitly perceiving the articulatory gestures that produce those sounds.
The movements the speaker made with their mouth and tongue.
Exactly. It suggests our perception is intrinsically tied to our own capacity for action, for speaking ourselves.
That's a wild idea. Listening is partly doing. Can you give an example?
Sure, think about co-articulation. The way a sound is pronounced changes slightly depending on the sounds next to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So take the same little acoustic burst of air. Depending on the vowel after it, it might sound like a P or a K. For instance, a burst around 1440 hertz might sound like P before an I or U vowel,
Okay.
but like K before an A vowel. The motor theory suggests that because the underlying articulation is different lips for P, back of the tongue for K, our perception follows the action, not just the raw sound.
Our brain is basically saying, to make that sound pattern before that vowel, they must be making a P shape.
That's the core idea. It's recognizing the linguistic action.
So our brain simulates the speaker's movements.
Yeah.
And this leads to parity, right? Where listeners and talkers kind of agree on what counts as a sound.
Precisely. A shared understanding grounded in action.
Does this have a physical basis in the brain? Can we see this happening?
Absolutely. The discovery of mirror neurons was huge for this, first in primates, but there's compelling evidence in humans too. These neurons fire both when you do an action, like reaching for a cup.
Right. And when you watch someone else do the same action, your mirror neurons activate as if you were doing it.
Whoa.
It suggests a fundamental mechanism for action recognition. So when you hear someone speak, parts of your brain involved in speaking that sound might subtly activate. It creates this direct, embodied link between production and perception.
A marvelous internal simulation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so brain activity, pathways. Let's zoom in even further. Where does the fundamental ability for language even come from? Our genes.
Genetics certainly plays a crucial role. Research has identified specific genes, like the FOXP family, particularly FOXP2. These are linked to neural development and are known to be associated with certain speech and language disorders when they're disrupted.
So it shows that some language functions are deeply rooted in our biology. It's not all just learning.
Definitely not. It provides insights into the biological foundations.
And there was that report linking a specific genetic variant to the emergence of spoken language in humans.
That's right. A variant in a gene related to RNA processing, actually. And one author, Dr. Robert Darnell, suggested this variant helped Homo sapiens become, well, dominant.
He did suggest it played a role in our unique cognitive abilities, including language. It points to a deep evolutionary story.
Understanding these biological roots helps us grasp why human language is so unique, doesn't it?
It does. Its complexity, its universality among humans. It suggests our capacity for communication isn't just cultural, it's woven into our biological fabric, a key evolutionary advantage.
And because these systems are so complex, when things go wrong, the impact is significant. Which brings us to language and speech disorders, like dysphagia, difficulty swallowing, often linked to speech issues, affecting, what, 40% of stroke survivors?
Yeah, it's a major challenge. It highlights an urgent need for effective treatments and, importantly, really robust research.
Which can be tricky, right?
Absolutely. This area needs, as one source put it, continued innovation and methodological advancements. Take something like repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation, or RTMS. It shows promise for post-stroke dysphagia. But many systematic reviews looking at its effectiveness have been rated as having critically low methodological quality.
Even if they found significant evidence supporting it. That sounds contradictory.
It does, doesn't it? It means the studies themselves often had flaws in their design or reporting, making it hard to be fully confident in the conclusions, even if the results looked positive.
I see.
It's not dismissing the potential of RTMS, but it's a strong call for more rigorous, high-quality studies. We need treatments based on the absolute strongest evidence.
Right, meticulous science is key. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Moving from the deep biology to the profoundly social side of language. How does it actually live out there in our communities?
A perfect example of this is code switching.
Right, when people use more than one language in a single conversation?
Or even within the same sentence. It's not just knowing two languages, it's fluidly moving between them. Like a study on Puerto Rican Spanish and English in New York noted phrases like, "mi hiban a layoff."
They were going to lay me off. Mixing Spanish grammar with an English word.
Exactly. And a crucial point here. Code switching is not a sign of broken language or not knowing either language well.
No.
Quite the opposite. Research shows it's often highly grammatical, incredibly fluid, and a natural, sophisticated part of bilingual communication. It shows competence and cultural dexterity.
That's important. And our sources show it's pretty common, especially for, say, foreign-born students in college.
Very common. A study at Brooklyn College found students code switching in academic spots like the library, and definitely with friends from similar backgrounds.
And home is the prime spot, usually.
Often, yes. Home is where L2 speakers, second language speakers, are often most likely to code switch. But it's not just for casual chat. Their non-English language is actively used for all sorts of information tasks.
Like searching the internet, social media, texting.
All of that. It paints a picture of a really vibrant, active linguistic life beyond just English for many people.
The study noted some interesting details, too, about demographics and proficiency.
Yeah, interestingly, Asian students in that particular study were more likely to code switch. And perhaps counterintuitively, those with higher self-reported English skills were sometimes less likely to code switch.
Why would that be?
It's complex. It could relate to identity, the specific social context, maybe feeling less need to use the other language for certain tasks if their English is very strong, or maybe just comfort levels. It's not a simple relationship.
So for our listeners, especially maybe monolingual listeners, what's the takeaway here?
I think it's an invitation to appreciate the incredible linguistic richness around us. For many multilingual people, their non-English language is vital to their identity, how they get information, their academic life. Code switching isn't a deficit, it's a sophisticated strategy. It defines social ties, builds community, reflects cultural identity. It's a tool for navigating complex worlds.
Seeing it as anything less really misses the point.
Absolutely.
Okay, building on language adapting in social contexts. What about language itself changing over time?
Yes, the historical dimension.
We have that classic foundational study by William Labov on Martha's Vineyard, the social motivation of a sound change.
The cornerstone of sociolinguistics, yeah. Labov studied the centralization of two diphthongs.
Those gliding vowel sounds like A and right and O in house.
Exactly. He found that on Martha's Vineyard, the way people pronounced these was changing. The starting point of the vowel was moving towards the center of the mouth. And crucially, this change was going against the grain of broader linguistic trends happening elsewhere in New England.
Which made it really interesting. Why was it happening there?
The key was the social context. The islanders felt increasing economic pressure from the summer tourist boom.
They saw it as a threat to their traditional way of life, their independence.
Precisely. It created this strong, almost defensive sense of local identity, a need to signal, I belong here, I'm not one of them.
And the pronunciation became a signal.
Lebeau discovered that increased centralization of those specific diphthongs served as an unconscious but powerful linguistic marker. It signaled identification with the island way of life.
Wow. And the most fascinating part.
It wasn't just the old Yankee families doing it most strongly. The younger Portuguese descent group actually showed higher rates of centralization.
Even though they were ethnically distinct.
Yes. It wasn't about ethnicity per se. It was about their stronger identification with the island. They were becoming more central to the island's year-round economy, kind of supplanting the English group in some ways, as Lebeau put it.
So they use this pronunciation to assert their status as native vineyarders.
It seems so. It underlines how language, even subtle pronunciation shifts, can be this incredibly powerful tool for social belonging, identity, maybe even asserting status.
It really shows how tightly intertwined our sense of self and community is with how we speak. This leads us to an even broader concept, doesn't it? Language ideologies.
Yes, a really important concept. Language ideologies are basically shared beliefs, feelings, ideas about language. They aren't just about grammar rules. They connect language to society, to power, to identity in a really dynamic way.
They undergird language use, meaning our beliefs shape how we talk.
And how we talk, in turn, reinforces or sometimes challenges those beliefs. They serve social ends, not just linguistic ones, and they're often multiple, debated, contested.
A powerful example from the sources is the widespread belief in the U.S. that standard American English is the only proper or appropriate language for school, government, work, media.
Right. That's a strong ideology.
And the implication of that ideology.
Well, the crucial implication is that other language forms, African American English, Southern English, Spanglish, Chicano English, Spanish, are then often seen, subtly or overtly, as inappropriate for those public, powerful contexts.
And this isn't about the actual linguistic merit of those varieties, is it?
Absolutely not. Linguistically, they are all complex, rule-governed, valid systems. It's about how linguistic difference gets used, how it's called upon to rationalize social organization.
And effectively to justify social inequality.
That's the argument, yes. For instance, think about the term overstand, sometimes used in African American English instead of understand.
Oh.
It's not just a synonym. It often signifies a deeper comprehension. An understanding that includes the underlying attitudes, the context, maybe the injustices within the dominant way of speaking or thinking.
So it's using language to critique, to assert identity, to push back.
Exactly. It's a powerful example of how communities use language not just to communicate facts, but to navigate and respond to social realities and power structures.
It's such a powerful reminder. Language isn't just this neutral toolkit.
Not at all.
It's a dynamic social construct that reflects power, shapes identity, and is power in many ways. Wow, what a journey we've taken from neurons firing.
All the way to the broad social narratives embedded in just how we talk every day. It really has been a deep dive.
Yeah.
From the precision of AI models predicting brain activity to the specific roles of those dorsal and ventral language pathways.
The genetic roots, the challenges in creating disorder.
And that whole rich social tapestry of code switching, sound change, language ideologies. It's just, well, it's a marvel. A complex, living system.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, our listener? What's the big idea to maybe carry forward from all this?
Perhaps it's realizing that language isn't some static tool we just learn like hammering a nail. It's a living, breathing system. It's constantly adapting, constantly being shaped by everything from our genes deep inside us to our social interactions right here on the surface. Maybe it encourages us to think a bit more critically about every word we say, every sound we hear, And also the silent assumptions we carry around about how language should be used or who sounds right or wrong.
It challenges us to see those deep connections between language, identity, and power.
Definitely.
So as you go about your day, maybe listen a little differently. Notice how language shifts around you, how tiny accent differences or word choices can carry huge social weight.
Pay attention to your own language choices too, and how you perceive others' language.
Are you listening beyond just the literal words? Are you hearing the biological story, the social story they tell?
It's really an invitation, isn't it, to a deeper understanding of ourselves, our communities, and our incredibly interconnected world, all through the lens of language.